Yeah, it started with a promise, yeah. So, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Notice now your seed will be strangers in the land not free. They'll serve and suffer held in hand for 100 years in Jewish land. But I will judge that nation's throne, and they will leave with wealth their own. A future spoken clear and planned before a child could take the land. Abraham, Yitzchak, promise passed. Yaakov holds it firm and fast. 12 sons rise from one command, a growing name, a forming band. One more son with dreams that lead. Yosef rises through the need, not by crown and not by sword, but by the word that he could store. 7 years the land will rise, 7 more will drain it dry. He saw the fall before it came, and built a system out of grain. City to city, store by store, he filled the land and guarded more what others spent. He held in place a future locked in measure space. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. When the famine took the ground, every nation gathered round. Bread for silver, bread for land, life restored by Yosef's hand. Not just Egypt, far and wide, the world itself was kept alive. Where others broke and fell apart, he fed the world with steady heart. Store it up, measure it right, plan the years before the night. When the world runs out of breath, preparation beats the death. Store it up, measure it right, plan the years before the night. When the world runs out of breath, preparation beats the death.
His father came, his brothers too. From 70 souls the nation grew. They settled where the land was strong, Goshen fields where flocks belong. The fathers passed, returned to rest in Chevron caves with all the blessed. But Yosef stayed where kings are laid, in Egypt's ground in linen state.
A Hebrew name in Pharaoh's land, the right hand to a foreign hand. Store it up, now you see what was said was meant to be. From promise made to palace floor, a people growing more and more. 70 souls in a land not their own. Store it up, measure it,
Store it up,
years before the
and years before the night.
Store it up.
Laughter in the courtyard, lanterns in the night. Listen for the babies crying out in light. Word spreads fast down Goshen Lane, another house alive again. One small cradle, now there's more. Tiny footsteps on the floor, neighbors smiling, voices sing. Joy a newborn cry can bring, hope arise without a warning. Life is dancing in the morning, blessings growing everywhere. Little hands in every chair. 6 at a time, hear the laughter rise. Tiny stars lighting up the skies. Room so full of love and sound, life is blooming all around. 6 at a time, what a joyful day. Hope keeps multiplying anyway. From the mother strong and kind, blessings coming 6 at a time. Shoes by the doorway, toys on the ground, happy little chaos all around. Every corner filled with cheer, children's voices far and near. Grandmothers laughing, sisters shout, another blessing's coming out. Dancing hearts and clapping hands, joy spread it across the land. Every cradle, every bed, songs of life forever spread. 6 at a time, hear the laughter rise. Tiny stars lighting up the skies. Room so full of love and sound, life is blooming all around. the ground. 6 at a time, hear the laughter rise. Tiny stars lighting up the skies. Every blessing heaven sends turns a house to joy again. Cradles rocking side by side. Life is dancing far and
Up a crown, lower throne. Now the land is ruled as one. A tighter grip, a single name. A king who builds, a king who claims. They look out past the city lines. Saw flocks, saw fields, saw growing signs. Too many now, too strong, too near. If war comes close, they won't stay here. Don't strike. Control. Control. Set the task, find the load. Mark the hands that till the road. Build the stores, raise the walls. Measure worth by what one hauls.
Count the bricks, set the pace.
What you build becomes your place, yeah.
Count the bricks, write it down.
Labor lifts and locks you down. Count the bricks, set the pace. What you build becomes your place. Count the bricks, write it down. Labor lifts and locks you down. Count the bricks.
Show your strength, compete, create. Who can build the most by weight? We gave our best beneath the sun. They kept the numbers when we were done.
What was pride became demand. Now every day match what we planned. Sons to back, not drawn inside. Not every hand was measured tight. Not every name was marked the same. Not every shoulder bore the claim. No choice. No drop. No drop. Straw from fields and I would flood. Cut and dried from river mud. Mixed with clay to bind it tight. Held the form and gave it life. Without the straw the bricks won't hold. They crack, they break, they lose their mold.
Count the bricks,
Don't fall behind.
what you make.
They redefine.
Count the bricks,
Day by day, work becomes the only way.
count the bricks,
All we chose,
what you make.
what we made.
Count the bricks,
Come to death,
work becomes.
must be paid.
Count the bricks, what you make. Count the bricks, day by day. Count the bricks,
Match the day,
what you make.
no one leaves
Count the bricks,
till quarters stay.
count the bricks.
This is the number.
Tons. 16 tons in the burning sun. Mud and straw till the day is done. Dust in the throat, no water near. Move that clay or you disappear. We raise the walls for Pete's home today. Tomorrow Mrs. takes our pay. Stack it high, watch it slide. Build it again till the body breaks inside. Build it fast, don't fall behind. Oh, 16 tons of clay today. Lift it up and pass the clay. Shape the brick and hold the line. 16 tons till you lose your mind. 16 tons, no end in sight. Work the day and break by night. Brick by brick we wear away. 16 tons of clay. Straw from the fields by the river bend. Cut and dry just to make it stand. Mix it in or the bricks won't hold. crack and crumble before they're sold. Hands in mud till the skin runs raw, measured lives by a written law. Every mark that the scribes record turns to weight we can't ignore. Count it out, match the day. Yeah! 16 tons of clay today, lift it up and pass the clay. Miss the count and feel the blow. 16 tons and you still owe. 16 tons, stack it straight, every breath tied to the weight. Brick by brick we're locked in place, 16 tons we can't erase. Some men break, some don't last, some just learn to move it fast. No way out, no delay, only more of the same. Yeah! 16 tons of clay today, lift it up and pass the clay. Build it up, let it fall. 16 tons means nothing at all. 16 tons, day by day, what we make just fades away. Still the count will never sway. 16 tons of clay. 16 tons. Again tomorrow. Wait, wait.
Press them down. Load the weight, stretch the day, mud to brick, take their strength away. Count the names, mark the line, break the body, they outgrow the design. Hands give out, the backs bend low, still the numbers only grow. Count again, there's always more. What we break, they restore. They watch the sky, they read the signs, spoke in low, unsettled lines. A child will rise from out their line, marked by water, marked in time. If it begins, we end it there. Not in the street, not in the air. At the stool, before the breath, between the life and the death. If it's a son, he does not stay. No name, no sound taken away. They still grow, so we cut the future.
voices echo down Goshen Street. Feet start moving to the rebel beat, where a newborn cry breaks through the air. Two brave hearts are already there. Spin the circle, lift the sound. Every child of victory found. Shifra Pua, voices declare life is stronger than royal decree. Dance the future into the air. Children rising wild and free. Shikrapua, voices declare life is stronger and royal decree. La 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 la.
The order stands. No more midwives. The quiet failed. The boy still lived. So now the word is plainly given. Take the sons. Don't wait. Don't hide. Bring them down to the riverside. No court. No guard, no need at all. Every son to the Nile. Every son to the Nile. Street to street, the message moves. Hand to hand, no one refuses. No soldier stands to force the line. The people carry the design. A knock, a shout, a door thrown wide. Every son, hey, hey, to the Nile. Hey, hey, every son, hey, hey, to the Nile. Hey, hey. Down the banks, the river wide. Mothers stand, they do not hide. Arms held tight, then torn away. The current takes, it does not stay. No silence now, no hidden place. They read the sky, they name the threat. A child will rise, you stop it yet. By water marked, by water end. So Pharaoh spoke and did not bend. Every son, to the night. Every son, to the night. Every son, to the Nile. No name left, no child. Every son, no child. The
They name their gods in every field. Happy in the rivers rise, Ra above in burning skies, Hathor in the grazing land, life and power at their hand, carved in gold and carved in stone, each one claimed a guarded throne. Among them walked a quiet fear, the living God they held most near, the Lamb that moved through field and gate, untouched, protected, set his fate. No blade could fall, no hand could take, to harm the Lamb was death to make. They would not eat what we would raise, nor share the work of flocks or graze. To tend the herd was seen as shame, an unclean task, a lesser name. They kept their distance from the field, from blood, from birth, from what we heal. Yeah, from our hands their power grew, the ox that pulled, the sheep they knew, the beasts that turned their soil to grain were raised by those they held in disdain. They would not touch, but still relied on living gods we multiplied. Their priests spoke words the people feared, the magicians made the signs appear, necromancers read the night, claimed to name both death and life. They cast their lots, they read the flame, they spoke their gods in Pharaoh's name, but all their signs and all their art could not command a beating heart. What they called gods were never alive. Came before the man, first a whisper in the clay pit, then a murmur by the river road. Did you hear? The sun was barely climbing up when moles were set in rows, the drivers counting bricks again, the way the tally goes. My neighbor leaned beside the line and spoke beneath his breath that Foley, the prince who fled the palace once, has walked back out of death. I laughed it off like desert dust that rides the morning air. For men who run from Pharaoh's sword do not come wandering there, but whispers move through Goshen's fields like wind across dry grain. The one who struck the overseers crossed the sands again. They say he walks with desert eyes and speaks of ancient things, of promises to our fathers' bones before there were Egyptian kings. Some swore they saw him by the wells where elders gathered near, a quiet man with sunburned skin who spoke without a fear. He told them of a voice of fire that called him from the wild, of a God our fathers used to serve before the Nile defiled. The elders bowed their trembling heads as though a truth had stirred. For some remembered ancient vows they'd only half remembered. But word reached Pharaoh's palace gates before the noon was done, and drivers cracked their whips that day like thunder in the sun. The straw was counted tighter now, the bricks weighed harder still. For kings do not like desert men who speak against their will. I did not see him that first day, but something in the air had changed. The priests were louder in their songs, the drivers harsher in their blows, and rumors moved like restless wind across the brick and stone. Then one old man who heard him speak came running through the square. He says the God of Abraham has heard the people's prayer, and Pharaoh's throne will shake, he said, and Egypt's gods will fall. We stared at him like he'd gone mad, but no one laughed at all. They say the desert prophet has come walking through the land, and somewhere past the river road, he's standing now with staff in hand. He speaks as though the sky itself has given him the word, and kings who rule the Nile's long banks will tremble when he's heard. They say a desert prophet has come walking through the land. That night the stars above the fields burned brighter than before, and someone whispered in the dark, tomorrow he meets Pharaoh.
Someone came running through the market square, shouting, laughing, half out of breath. Piloni, drop that brick and listen.
The desert prophet stood today inside the palace hall, before the golden throne of kings and idols carved on walls. He held a shepherd's weathered staff, twisted dark with age, a desert stick worn smooth by years of wandering the sage. Not gold like Pharaoh's scepter rod, not carved with priestly art, just desert wood from foreign sand, clutched tight within his heart. And Moshe spoke before them all. Thus says Hashem, the God of Israel, reach my people that they may serve me. The courtiers laughed beneath their crowns, the magician stepped ahead. If power walks with desert men, let Egypt's core
struck hard and fast. The palace guard stepped stumbling back as courtiers gasped in mass. But Pharaoh's priests threw down their rods, with secret words they cried, and serpents struck the marble floor from every temple side. Serpents before the throne, hissing across the stone, coils of living shadow where Pharaoh sits alone. Serpents before the throne, the court drew back in fear, for one rose higher than the rest and struck the others near. The desert serpent lunged and struck with power none could name. It swallowed every serpent whole until but one remained. Then Moshe walked across the floor before the stunned array. He seized the serpent by the tail and would return that day. The staff lay quiet in his hand as though it always had, but none who watched could shake the truth of what their eyes had had. Pharaoh leapt up in burning rage. Seize him! Take the desert prophet! The guards rushed forward through the hall, their spears held high to strike. But Moshe raised his hand toward them and turned their courage white. His skin burst pale with sorrow, bright as bone in flame, and soldiers stumbled back in fear, calling curses in his name. Archers, Pharaoh shouted, shoot him where he stands. But bowstrings snapped like brittle reeds, falling from their hands. Serpents before the throne, and now a hand of snow, a sign no priest in Egypt's court had power yet to show. Serpents before the throne, the court was trembling wide, for something greater than their gods was standing there in pride. Pharaoh's voice cut through the hall, sharp as desert wind. Leave this court before I strike and never return again. But every man could see the truth behind the royal cry. The tyrant king who ruled the Nile was shaken deep inside. So Moshe turned and walked away through soldiers split apart, and whispers chased him through the gates like thunder in the heart. Serpents before the throne, and a hand of living sign. The court had seen the power there no temple could define. Serpents before the throne, and the tyrant felt the blow, for Moshe walked from Pharaoh's court with power yet to show. Serpents before the throne, and word ran through the land, if Moshe could shake Pharaoh's hall, what might Hashem have planned? My friend grabbed hold of both my arms, still laughing in the street. Poloni. Pharaoh looked afraid. And for the first time in my life, I thought, we might be free. The decree came before sunrise, a trumpet in the square. The herald stood beneath the palace sail. Herald, hear the decree of Pharaoh, ruler of the two lands.
You shall no longer be given straw to make bricks. Let the slaves gather straw for themselves, but the number of bricks required of them shall not be reduced. The drivers cracked their whips that dawn before the sun was high. The fields were stripped of broken stalks where brittle husks ran dry. The moles lay waiting in the pits where mud and sweat would stay. And someone cursed the desert man who'd come to stir the day.
The lash came faster than before, the tally climbed like flame.
And every man who slowed his hand was beaten just the same. No straw today,
Still 16 tons of clay. The drivers count the bricks again and curse us where we stay. No straw today. Still 16 tons of clay. The mud is thick, the lash is quick, and none may turn away.
the riverbanks were torn apart for reeds and brittle stems, but nothing filled the empty molds the way the straw had been. The sun climbed hard across the pits where backs were bent and gray, and every hour the drivers roared 16 tons of clay.
The dust of bricks filled mouth and lungs, the sweat ran through the sand,
and every man who faltered once felt leather on his hand. No straw today,
still 16 tons of clay. The tally never bends or breaks no matter what we say. No straw today, still 16 tons of clay. The mud runs red where whips have fed upon our backs all day.
a man beside me dropped his mold, his hands too torn to try. The driver raised the lash again and struck him where he'd lie. Move fast, the slaves, the overseer, cried the king has had his say. You'll build the bricks or feed the sand with 16 tons of clay.
Hey!
That night the elders found the man who spoke before the throne. Moshe stood beside his kin with Aaron alone. They cried to him in bitter rage, you've made our burden grow. You've given Pharaoh cause to strike the ones who bend below. And someone whispered through the crowd with anger in his breath, better chains we always knew than promises of death.
No straw today, still 16 tons of clay.
The night is long, the drive is strong, and hope feels far away.
No straw today, still 16 tons of clay.
The mud and blood mix in the flood where broken workers pray. The river still ran quiet that night. The temples burned their sacred flame, and somewhere in the dark Moshe prayed, because tomorrow he would return to Pharaoh again.
Morning came like any other morning, priest walking the river steps, incense rising in the dawn, the Nile shining gold beneath the sun. Egypt's got a water waking for the day. I walked the river path at dawn, where workers gathered near. The mist still rising from the tide, the morning cool and clear. The priests were lifting silver bowls to greet the rising sun, for Egypt's life flowed from that stream since all their days begun. Then someone pulled my sleeve and said, Poloni, look who stands beside the king. The desert prophet faced the throne where sacred waters glide, and Aharon held the shepherd's staff above the morning tide. Moshe spoke before the court where Pharaoh watched the stream. Thus says Hashem, release my people from the hand of Egypt's stream. But Pharaoh laughed beside the bank where reeds bent in the breeze. For this small god of desert wind, you trouble kings like these. The Nile gives life to all the world and answers to my throne. So show your power, desert man, before these gods of stone. And raise the desert staff above the river wide, and every voice along the shore fell silent where they cried. returns to judgment, where our children's blood once ran. The crimson spread along the banks, through canals and temple gates. The barges rocked in scarlet waves, where priests had prayed to fate. The fish rolled pale against the tide, their silver bellies wide, and every man who touched the stream drew back in sudden fright. The smell of death rose in the heat where sacred waters ran, and every prayer the priest once sang fell silent in the sand. Oh, men dug wells beside the Nile with desperate bleeding hands, but mud and blood came seeping up across the thirsty land. Yet Hebrews filled their jars with water clear as desert rain, while Egypt clawed the river banks and found the red again.
This morning now the Nile bleeds for my sons. The river of their empire runs a scarlet road. This morning the Nile bleeds for my sons. The priests stand helpless where their river god once flowed. This morning the Nile bleeds for my sons.
For every child they cast away, into the Nile's command, the temples burned their incense thick to calm the rising fear. The magicians muttered secret words, but blood was everywhere. Pharaoh turned his crown aside as though the sign were small, for kings who claim the throne of gods do not admit a fall.
This morning the Nile bleeds for my sons.
The river of the empire has become a witness now.
This morning the Nile bleeds for my sons.
The priest can chant forever, but the river will not bow.
This morning the Nile bleeds for my sons.
When Hashem remembers promises, even rivers must avow. 7 days the river rotted, 7 days the priests explained, 7 days the people argued while Pharaoh held his throne. But somewhere near the palace gates Moshe spoke again, and Egypt held its breath, because the river had answered.
This morning the Nile bleeds for my son. This morning the Nile bleeds for my sons.
7 days the river rotted, fish floating silver in the reeds, priests burning incense thick as smoke, and every man who walked the Nile road asked the same question: what did we see? Then the trumpet sounded, the herald climbed the temple steps beneath the falcon crown. The soldiers formed a ring of bronze to keep the murmurs down. The scribes unrolled their polished scrolls, prepared to write the word, the version of the river's tale that Pharaoh wished me heard. The herald raised his voice and cried, "People of Egypt, hear!" And every whisper in the square grew suddenly unclear.
Pharaoh says the river lies,
The Nile still serves the throne. No desert god commands the flood that Egypt calls its own.
Pharaoh says the river lies.
Let every man repeat, the blood we saw upon the tide was trickery and deceit. They said the river turned that day to purge a rebel's crime, a foreign curse from desert winds that priests would cleanse in time.
said the shepherd from the sand had stirred the sacred tide, a wandering criminal whose words were better left to die. So speak no praise of desert gods, nor spread the tales they bring, for every tongue that feeds that lie will answer to the king. Pharaoh says the river lies, the Nile obeys the crown. The gods of Egypt guard the land and will not be cast down. Pharaoh says the river lies, write it, carve it, proclaim, for scribes can shape tomorrow by deciding what to name. Meshach and Ra spat in the dust and laughed beside the clay. Peloni kings have ruled this river long before today. You saw a trick beside the banks, a clever desert show, but Egypt's gods have stood for years and will not bow so low. But Chaver Tov leaned close and said with quiet in his breath, if rivers bleed beneath the staff, what waits beyond the next? The scribes wrote down the herald's words while markets hummed again, for kingdoms often mend their cracks by choosing which truth wins. And somewhere in the crowded square an old man shook his head, for nothing new lives under sun where power rewrites what was said.
Pharaoh says the river lies,
Repeat it through the land. The Nile still bends before the throne by Ra's eternal hand.
Pharaoh says the river lies,
but every man who saw still dreams of crimson water spreading through the law.
7 days the river rotted, 7 days the priest explained, 7 days the herald shouted that the Nile still served the crown. But somewhere near the palace gate Moshe walked again, and Egypt held its breath for what would come next.
The river moved again that morning. We thought it was a ripple, then the water rose and something green climbed out.
What? 1, 2, 3, 4.
One frog stood upon the bank, as big as any dog. It blinked its yellow temple eyes, that monstrous river frog. The soldiers laughed and jabbed their spears, drive that creature back. One guard swung hard with bronze-tipped staff. The frog burst open, croak.
2 frogs,
then 10 frogs, then 50 more appeared. Every strike the soldiers made twice as many here. Croaking in the night, croaking in the streets, frogs hopping through the palace gates and landing at our feet.
croaking in the night.
Croaking loud and bright, you strike the frog and 10 more come. Croaking in the night.
Right. 1, 2, 3, 4.
The giant frog hopped down the road, the guards gave frantic chase. They swung their spears and clubs again, and frogs flew every place. Green shapes bouncing off the stones, croaks that filled the sky. The harder that the soldiers struck, the more came leaping by. The markets filled with jumping frogs, the cooks began to grin. Frog stew tonight, the vendors cried as pots were lowered in. Croaking in the night, croaking in the square, frogs hopping through the market stalls and landing everywhere. Croaking in the night, croaking without end, you strike the frog and more appear again and yet again.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The giant frog jumped back again, straight into the Nile tide. But soon the riverbanks erupted,
green on every side. Frogs poured out across the land in rivers made of legs. They filled the roads and temple steps and palace marble ledges. They hopped into the baker's bowls, they leapt into the bread. They croaked inside the cooking pots and landed on the bed. You lift the lid to cook your meal, frogs staring back at you. You close your eyes to sleep that night, croaking in the room.
1, 2, 3,
Croaking in the night, croaking in the bed, croaking in the ovens where the pharaoh's cooks once fed. Croaking in the night, croaking in the throne, croaking in the palace halls where Pharaoh sits alone.
1, 2, 3.
Days passed without a moment's sleep. The croaking never ceased. The priests lost track of sacred words. The guards could find no peace. The giant frogs still hopped about beyond the palace wall. Each time they struck the monster down, 10,000 more would fall. Then Pharaoh called for Moshe with anger in his breath. Remove these frogs from Egypt now, or plague us all to death. Moshe spoke with steady voice before the trembling throne. When should the frogs depart this land and leave your kingdom lone? Pharaoh raised his weary eyes, his voice both proud and sore. Tomorrow, let them leave tomorrow. The croaking shook the floor. Croaking in the night, croaking through the land. The frogs still sang their mocking song across the desert sand. Croaking in the night, but Pharaoh set the day, and when tomorrow's morning came, the frogs would go away.
Croaking in the streets, croaking in the beds, croaking in the ovens, inside our heads, all night, no stop. Meshach and Ronak slow at dawn. I still tired but steady drawn. Still hear them show, but not the same. It fades to noise, it blends to plain. He rubbed his eyes, then laughed it through. Strange what a man gets used to. Croaking fills the air, croaking everywhere, croaking everywhere, croaking. Then horns rang out through Temple Square. Herald climbed the highest stair. By Pharaoh's hand the frogs are slain. His mighty word has cleared the land. The gods have bowed, the plague is done. Egypt restored by Pharaoh's hand. The crowd took up what priests had shown. All power lives within the throne. No croak, no sound. Now every footstep cracks the ground. Every whisper feels too loud, and then it hits before it's seen. A smell that splits what silence means. The stench rose thick along the street, heavier far than croaking beat. Where frogs once sang, now rot remains, piled in hills through roads and lanes. Sleep returns, then breaks again. Now every sound cuts deeper in. Oh, hits in the street, hits in the heat, hits in the street, hits. Stop the bricks, no quota stands. Clear the roads with every hand. No wall goes up, no count today, till every heap is hauled away. Chaver Tov, set down the clay. No bricks are made till this is clear. Cop by cop they tried to move, but no one could get passage through. Markets closed, the paths were sealed. No man could reach the trade or field. Banks ran thick, canals turned slow. The his claim had done. He took the crown for ending frogs. Now where's the weight of what remains? Oh, hips, don't disappear. Hips, still sitting here. Hips, those again. Hips. The roads cleared out, the carts moved on, the ovens burned, the markets called, and Egypt said, we're back again! We're back again! The frogs were gone, the streets lay quiet in the sun. Though the stench still rode, the wind carts rolled again. Markets open, brick pits filled with clay, and Pharaoh sat upon his throne, certain Egypt stood secure. Moshe stood beyond the gates where Pharaoh would not hear. Dust swirling through the morning wind across the palace square. He spoke to Elhanan quietly, where temple shadows stand. Stretch out your staff, strike the dust of Egypt, and Elhanan struck the sand. At first it arose like drifting ash caught in the desert air. Then every grain began to move. The living sand, Kimi, you can't ignore 'em, Kimi. The dust of Egypt crawling now across the cursed land. The living sand, Kimi, you can't outrun 'em, Kimi. From crown to beard to cattle hide, they rise from Pharaoh's sand. They fill the hair of every man, they nested in each beard. They crawled beneath the linen robes of soldiers standing near. They bit the necks of ox and mule, they swarmed the horses' hides. They burrowed in the palace cloth where Pharaoh's court resides. The dust we swept from Pharaoh's floors, the dust beneath his throne, now crawled across the skin of kings and claimed the land its own. The living sand, Kimi, you can't ignore 'em, Kimi. The earth of Egypt rising now against the royal hand. The living sand, Kimi, you can't escape 'em, Kimi. The smallest plague becomes the key that breaks the mighty land. The priests who shaved for purity now scratched until they bled. For crawling lice across their skin defiled the rites they led. No temple song could hide the truth, no incense masked the shame. For Geb the god beneath their feet could not command the grain. The magicians came with whispered spells and struck the dust again. Their staffs fell hard upon the ground, but nothing would obey. The crawling earth ignored their charms, their secrets turned to air. And one step back in quiet dread, as lies filled robe and hair. This is the finger of Elohim. The words fell sharp and plain. The court grew still as desert stone, while lies crawled through the grain. And Hebrews watched the overseers drop whips they could not hold. For no man drives a slave to work, while vermin take their toll. The living sand, Kini, you can't ignore 'em, Kini. From palace throne to cattle stall, they rule the
choking land, the living sand. Kini, you can outrun them, Kini. The dust of Egypt testifies against the Pharaoh's hand. Yet Pharaoh sat with hardened jaw, though crawling filled the hall, while scraps prepared their careful words to soften Egypt's fall. They whispered of a desert pest, a trial from the skies, and Pharaoh swore the God still stood behind his royal lies. The living sand, Kini, you can't ignore them, Kini. The earth itself bears witness now against the Pharaoh's hand. The living sand, Kini, you can outrun them, Kini. Yet still the stubborn heart of kings refuses to understand. The scratching slowly faded, the dust lay still again. The priest declared the trial passed and Egypt safe once more. But in the quiet halls that night, Moshe spoke again. And Pharaoh's heart grew harder than before. The scratching faded, the dust lay still. The crawling plague was gone and Egypt tried to breathe again. But no one forgot the words spoken in the court. This is the finger of Elohim. Days passed beneath the desert sun while wounds began to close. The priests returned to temple steps, still itching through their robes. The brick pits filled with mud again, the carts began to roll, and taskmasters walked through Goshen with whips they meant to hold. One crack across the morning air sent silence through the clay. The work of slaves resumed again like every other day. But every overseer scratched his neck while shouting out commands, and every noble in the court still feared the crawling sand.
He hardened his hate-filled heart.
Though Egypt saw the sign,
He hardened his hate-filled heart.
and swore the throne was divine.
He hardened his hate-filled heart.
Though truth stood in his hall, a king who calls himself a god will never bend at all. The heralds climbed the temple stairs with scrolls prepared by dawn. The crawling dust was desert wind, the kingdom marches on. The gods of Egypt guard the land, the throne of Ra stands strong. No shepherd from the wilderness can prove our kingdom wrong. The markets nodded at the news, the scribes wrote every line, and Pharaoh sat above them all, certain he was divine. Yet whispers moved through shaded streets where laborers would stand, for every man who saw that dust still feared the living sand.
He hardened his hate-filled heart.
Though magicians spoke the truth,
He hardened his hate-filled heart.
and buried living proof.
He hardened his hate-filled heart.
Though fear filled every hall, a king who rules by pride alone will not release at all.
Shuckin' Ra laughed in the shade outside his painted door. You see, he said to Pelemy, the worst of this is o'er. The desert prophet had his moment, a clever trick at best. But Egypt stands eternal still while shepherds fade to dust. Yet Gever Tov worked beside the pits and spoke beneath his breath. If dust can rise against a king, what comes with teeth and death? Inside the palace Pharaoh raged, where golden pillars shone. No god of slaves commands the Nile, this land and throne are mine. Let Moshe shout beyond the gates, let shepherds curse the sand. Egypt bows to Pharaoh's will, and Pharaoh rules this land. The scribes wrote down his every word, the priests declared it law. But fear had settled in the court like cracks beneath a wall. Weeks passed beneath the desert sky. The brick carts filled the roads. The scars of bites began to fade. The priests resumed their oaths. And Egypt swore the danger past. The kingdom stood secure. For kings who rule the Nile itself have power to endure.
He hardened his hate-filled heart.
Though heaven's finger showed,
He hardened his hate-filled heart.
and sealed the desert road.
He hardened his hate-filled heart.
Though signs shook earth and sky, a king who will not bow to truth has already chosen why. Then early in the morning light, Gever Tov came running fast. Peloni Moshe stands again before the palace pass. He speaks of beasts within the land, of creatures wild and free. And Pharaoh laughs before his court as though he cannot see. But somewhere in the quiet fields beyond the palace wall, something in the wilderness was listening to the call.
He hardened his hate-filled heart.
I heard a scream, not like before. Lifting mud at dawn, brake line said the whip's not drawn. Then something moved beyond the grain, a sound that didn't sound like men. I turned and saw the field break open. Not one thing, many, too many. A rove, I heard them come. A roll, the ground undone. Claws in the dust, wings in the sun. Everything running, everything wrong. I could not see who they were hunting, who they would be. Who they would be. Who they would be.
A lion tore through carts of grain, a wolf leapt straight through shouting men. Horses snapped and dragged their chains, falcons dropped on chariot reins. A man beside me tried to run, something took him from the side. I didn't see what struck him down, just blood that sprayed and bodies slide.
The gods broke first, they didn't stand. No order, no command. A rove, it filled the land. A roll no one could stand. Teeth in the strong claws in command. The mighty fell where they once planned. A rove, I tried to flee, but something strange, it passed by me. I froze. It ran right past my side. A wolf, close enough to feel its breath. Its eyes were fire, but not for me. It led not at me. Pass me. Egypt broke, spears dropped too slow. Shields split open blow by blow. Chariots crushed in turning lines. Oxen screaming, tangled blind. Men who beat us day by day, now dragged across the stones they paved. Their orders lost, their voices gone. Their strength meant nothing anymore. Mida, Maggid, Mida. You hunt the weak, now you are prey. Now I can see it's not for me. The land itself has chosen sides and turned against their cruelty. No random hand, this is command. The one they mark now walks the land, and none can countermand. We ran toward Goshen's edge in fear, thinking death would meet us there. But when we crossed the pasture line, nothing. Wind and grass, children playing, silence behind us screams. It knew the line, it turned in time. Claws that tore through throne and shrine, stopped at something undefined. A rave, I felt it then. A rave, not beast but sent. The wild obeyed a voice unseen and bowed to its intent. They said the king cried out at last, go serve your God, just stay nearby. But Moshe answered firm, and still we do not serve where idols lie. We walk the path that he commands, not bound to throne, not bound to land. Break. And just like that, they were gone. Days returned, the mud was mixed, the whips came down the same as always. But something had changed. We worked and watched. We saw it clear and lost the fear. The power that breaks a kingdom's hand stood quietly here. They felt it too. They always knew a throne that rules through fear alone cannot stand what's true. We were slaves, still we stood untouched, and for the first time we knew who was. The beasts had gone. The fields lay open once again, and Egypt told itself the terror had passed. But Moshe returned, released the people of Hashem to serve him in the wild. If you refuse to free the slaves, the land will lose its pride. Tomorrow sickness fills the fields where Egypt's strength has grown. The cattle, horses, sheep, and herds will fall beside the stone. Pharaoh barely raised his eyes, no desert god commands my throne. Morning came, the wind moved slow across the fields, and something passed unseen.
Death in the field,
quiet and wide, the strength of Egypt falling down where cattle once had thrived.
death in the field,
No sword, no cry, just breath that fades from beasts that built the kingdom standing high. The
oxen dropped beside the plow where furrows cut the land. The horses stumbled in the dust that once obeyed command. Camels knelt along the trade roads and never rose again. And shepherd boys ran shouting news across the silent plain. The cart stood still beside the kilns, no hoofs pulled stone that day. Yet far in Goshen's pasture grass, the flock still fed in peace. No sickness touched a single herd, no breath began to cease.
Death in the fields,
the silence grows. The beasts that carried Pharaoh's wealth now lie where clover grows.
Death in the fields,
the empire learns. The hand that rules the wilderness is not the throne's concern.
Pharaoh sent his riders out to see the truth themselves. They crossed the farms of broken carts and empty watering wells. They reached the hills of Goshen where Hebrew cattle fed. Not one had fallen in the dust, not one lay cold and dead. The riders stared in disbelief, then turned toward Pharaoh's throne.
The scribes began their careful spin before the word returned. A sickness from the southern wind, bad pasture land and worms. But whispers outran every lie from stable stall to town. The slaves have lost no beast at all, the death has struck us down. Meshach and Ra stood by the gate of an empty cattle yard. Without the oxen pulling stone, the work grows slow and hard. Cover tove white clay from his hands and watch the road lie still. If Hashem strikes down their herds today, what breaks tomorrow's will?
death in the field,
the empire bends. The beasts that built 1,000 towns lie broken in the wind.
death in the field,
Yet Pharaoh's pride, though proof stands breathing in the grass, still will not step aside. The riders spoke, the court fell quiet, and Pharaoh heard the truth himself. The herds of slaves still lived. Yet Pharaoh hardened his heart, and somewhere beyond the palace walls, the prophet of Hashem prepared the next sign. Smoke in the morning air, not war cooking fires. Every street in Egypt smelled like roasted cattle. Butchers in the pasture fields cut meat before it spoiled. Cart wheels stacked with carcasses where oxen used to toil. Temples lost their sacred bulls, but fires still burn high. A feast across the city streets beneath the desert sky. Counting the dead herds, pile the meat high. Feast while the kingdom pretends it won't die. Counting the dead herds, drink while we can. Egypt is roasting the wealth of the land. Meshach and Ra raise greasy hands with laughter thick and loud. Look, Poloni, Pharaoh feeds us all, he shouted to the crowd. He carved the sacred temple bull and tossed the bones aside. No debts today, no wages owed, the king himself provides. He shoved Kaver Tov from the fire and grabbed the fattest cut. Slave, your credits paid in meat, then laughed and filled his gut. Counting the dead herds, fire in the street. Kings and beggars all eating the meat. Counting the dead herds, bones in the sand. Egypt devouring the wealth of the land. But carts stood still beside the kilns, no oxen left to haul. The brick pits slowed to half their pace with fewer whips to call.
Coverts of white, grease and dust from bruises on his arm. If Hashem struck down their peace today, what keeps the next from harm? Riders came from Goshen's hills with dust upon their breath. Not one Hebrew herd has fallen, only Egypt's death. The feast grew quiet for a beat, then laughter filled the square. But rumors ran faster than scribes could bury in the air. Counting the dead herd, the smoke climbs high, a kingdom celebrating what it cannot buy. Counting the dead herd, the fires burn low, and somewhere in the kiln yard Moshe gathered soot for the next blow. The meat was gone, the bones lay white, and Egypt waited for the wind to change. But the desert prophet had not finished, and soon the skin of kings would burn. Whoa!
It was Ra's bright day, the streets were full. Merchants shouting, children chasing carts. Then Moshe lifted Kilnash from the slave fires and cast it to the wind. The soot rose spinning toward the sky, a dark and twisting cone. A black wind climbing higher still above the palace stone. It spread across the desert sun till daylight dimmed to gray, and ash began to fall like snow across the crowd that day. At first a sting upon the skin like sparks from kiln and flame. Then swelling sores began to rise where ash and bodies came. Burning boils break the skin, ash that bites like fire. The dust that built the Pharaoh's walls now feeds a darker pyre. Burning boils break the skin, the kill smoke fills the land. For those who scarred the backs of slaves now burned by their own hand. Burned by their own hand. The priests collapsed beside the gates, their robes torn from their backs. The sores climbed up their shaven flesh like crawling fiery tracks. The magicians tried to face the man who spoke for Hashem's will, but none could stand before Moshe as boys spread thick and still. The whip hand shook with swollen sores, no overseer could strike. And those who beat the slaves for years now beg the slaves for life. Bring water, bring the healing salves, turn the bandage tight. And Hebrew hands that once were chained now help them through the night. Some offered coins for kindness done, some promised debts repaid. But swollen eyes watched carefully where hidden gold was laid. Days passed slow in burning pain, where Egypt lay in bed, while those who still could barely move sent slaves instead of dead. Meshach and cursed through broken skin, with sores across his jaw. Yet still he spat Porini and blamed the desert law. Burning boils break the skin, ash still fills the sky. The mighty crying out for help from those they once defied. Burning boils break the skin, the balance tilts at last. For hands once forced to slave in dust now hold the power fast.
palace halls and crowded streets, the same strange sight was seen. The slaves moving among the sick where masters once had been. And whispers passed from door to door across the wounded land. The prophet of Hashem still walks and Pharaoh still will stand. Burning boils break the skin, the kingdom rides in pain. Yet Pharaoh on his wounded throne still swears his gods remain. Burning boils break the skin and still the king proclaims, no desert god commands the throne, no prophet breaks his reign. Hey, hey. No prophet breaks his reign. At last the swords began to fade. The ash clouds slowly cleared, and Egypt rose again from bed, as though the danger disappeared. But promises made in fevered pain soon vanished with the swords, and those who helped their masters live found whips return once more. So the prophet of Hashem lifted his eyes again toward cloud.
Morning broke with heavy air. The prophet of Hashem stood where Pharaoh walked the river road. Send out the people, he said, or tomorrow the sky itself will strike this land. Bring in your servants, bring in your cattle, for what stands in the open will not survive. Some listened, many laughed. The clouds rolled black across the sun like drums across the sky. Wind shook the reeds beside the Nile as thunder answered high. Misha Henra knocked on my gate with panic in his breath. Lend me your cattle for the storm, the fields are certain death. He swore he'd pay when skies were clear and led them down the plain, yet left them tied beyond the wall when hell began to rain. Heaven hurls ice and fire, drums across the sky, stones of frozen thunder falling from on high. Heaven hurls ice and fire, lightning splits the land. For kings who will not free the slaves face Elohim's command. We crowded close inside the house with goats and trembling sheep, the thunder beating on the roof like giants in their sleep. Outside the storm became a war of lightning, flame and stone, hail that shattered cedar beams and crushed the Pharaoh's throne. Trees split open in the fields, flax and barley torn, while cattle scattered through the storm where chariot roads were worn. Heaven hurls ice and fire, storm drums never cease. Flames within the frozen stone strike the land of priests. Heaven hurls ice and fire, the heavens roar command. No crown can stop the thunder in Elohim's own hand. When morning came, the storm withdrew and silence filled the air. Broken branches scarred the fields and ruin everywhere. But in the pasture far from Goshen, where he left them tied, the cattle that Meshach-and-Ra had stolen still stood alive. For where the children of Hashem stand, his mercy walks the land, even beyond the borders of Goshen's quiet sand. Pharaoh called for Moshe then, I have sinned this time, he said. Elohim is just, and the storm, and I will send your people free. Moshe walked into the fields and lifted up his hand. The thunder ceased, the hail grew still, and quiet filled the land. Heaven hurled ice and fire, the storm obeyed the call. Kings may bend for just a breath, then rise and curse it all. Heaven hurled ice and fire, the skies had made it clear. No throne can rule the heavens when Elohim draws near. Heaven hurled ice and fire, the drums fade from the sky. Fields of Egypt shattered now, where crops and idols lie. Heaven hurled ice and fire, yet Pharaoh still declares, no desert god commands the throne or rules the son of Ra. The storm was gone, but broken statues lined the roads. And in the palace courts of Egypt, even the nobles whispered, the gods were beginning to fall. Heaven hurls ice. Wait. Heaven hurled ice.
Broken statue filled the courtyards. Hail scars in the palace walls. The storm had passed, but Egypt had seen something it could not forget. Inside the throne hall, the advisors finally spoke. They gathered near the falcon throne where shattered idols lay. The courtier speaking carefully of fields the storm had flayed. The barley gone, the flax destroyed, the orchard stripped with ice. The temples cracked by thunder's hand, this land has paid the price. The scribes stood silent by the wall, their scrolls still warm with ink. For every man inside that room now feared what they might think. One noble stepped before the throne and bowed his trembling head. Great king, the land cannot endure the signs the shepherd said.
Send them away.
Egypt is destroyed before another plague descend, before the gods are void.
Send them away.
Let the slaves be free, or what remains of Pharaoh's throne will sink into the sea. The chamber filled with murmured fear that rippled through the hall. For men who ruled the Nile's long banks had never feared a call. The river bled, the beasts ran wild, the cattle filled the graves. The sky itself rained fire and ice upon the land of slaves. And still this desert prophet stands before the palace gate. How many signs must heaven send before we change our fate? The nobles raise their voices now, no longer soft with dread. Send them away before the storm returns again, they say.
Send them away.
Egypt is destroyed, no throne can rule the sky itself, no king command the void.
Send them away.
Let the people go before the hand that struck our land returns with one more blow. Pharaoh rose beneath the crown, his eyes like burning coal. You tremble at a shepherd's staff and fear a desert soul. Egypt bows to none but me. The gods still guard this throne. The hall fell silent as he swore.
This land is mine alone. Moshe stood beyond the gates and heard the palace roar, for rumor ran through temple halls like waves against the shore. And somewhere in the frightened court, a truth no man could hide, the kingdom that had ruled the world was cracking from inside. His hand and chose to fight the God who ruled the sky and sea and land. So the desert prophet turned again toward Pharaoh's stubborn throne, and somewhere on the eastern wind a darker storm was forming. East wind pushed and held its breath. Sky went thick like calming death. Not a cloud, not rain, not sand. Something moving over land. Say my name, I can make it out. Every word gets swallowed loud. Air is full, the ground is gone. Something here is sitting wrong. 2 minutes. More swarm than land. No room to stand. More wings in sky. It multiplies. More swarm than land. No place to land. Everywhere. Everywhere. Step forward, watch them break, then close again with every wake. Street to wall, to skin to ground. Every inch is moving sound. Hands brush out, just hit more wings. Close alive with crawling things. Turn a corner, lose the way. Nothing looks like it did today. Still here. More swarm than land. No room to stand. More wings in sky. It multiplies. No space left. Not in our sand. More swarm than land. No space left. Not in our sand. More swarm than land.
Tree was green this morning light. Now it's bone and open side. Leaves gone clean, stripped to frame. Not a trace of what it came. No
one saw it happening. Just the sound of everything. Storehouse door already full. Living walls that shift and pull. Grab the grain, tie it fast. Run before the moments pass. Feel it move against the side. Something chewing from inside. Hit the bag, it splits apart. Nothing left but skin and bark. Too late. More swarm. More swarm than land. No room to stand. More wings in sky. It multiplies.
No field left. No store, no plan. Nothing left.
Nothing stands. Everywhere. Where did it go? The locusts were gone, the wind had carried them west. But when morning came, Egypt finally saw what the swarm had left behind. The markets opened slow that day, with baskets nearly bare. No barley piled beside the stalls, no figs or olives there. The bakers stared at empty bins where grain had always been. and merchants counted hollow shells where harvest once had filled. The orchard stood like skeletons, the vineyard stripped and gray. The wealth of Egypt's fertile land had vanished in a day. They said the palace held its stores behind the guarded wall, but whispers ran through every street, there may be none at all. Nothing left to eat, nothing left to grind. The harvest of 1,000 fields erased before our eyes. Nothing left to eat, the oven's silent now, and every empty marketplace makes hunger feel like now. Men wandered through the temple courts with silver in their hands, but bowls once filled with sacred grain lay empty in the sand. The priests still sang to gods of sun, to gods of field and rain, but empty jars beside the altar made the prayer seem vain. Then word began to move again across the starving land. Go south to Goshen's pasture roads where Hebrew storehouse stand. For once before in Egypt's past, when famine ruled the plain, a Hebrew prince had filled the barns and saved the land from pain. Now history turned full circle across the desert floor. The sons of those who once were saved came begging at their door. Nothing left to eat, nothing left to sell. The mighty kingdom of the Nile now knew the taste of hell. Nothing left to eat, the markets fade to dust, and Egypt's hungry multitudes turn south because they must. Nishakinra came down the road with anger in his stride. They trade us goats and sacks of grain while Pharaoh starves with pride. He tossed a bracelet in the sand before the Goshen gate. Take silver, take whatever shines, just end this cursed fate. Till they're told it, watch the trading lines where cattle change their hand. The land once fed by Joseph's dream now begs the dreamer's land. Empty roads, empty fields, empty temple halls, and hunger walked through Egypt's streets louder than the calls. For even kings who rule the Nile cannot command the grain. When heaven closes up the earth against a tyrant's reign. Nothing left to eat, nothing left to store. No sign, no sign. Midday sky, then nothing left. Light cut clean like hellback breath. No cloud pass, no shadow move, just the dark and no way through. Hands reach out, can't find the air. Feet won't move from where they were. What you ruled is gone from view. Day belongs to someone new. You said your God could never fall. Blind the eye of rock. Watch the whole world stall. Watch the whole world stall. Prince can't stand, God can't turn. Torches lit, but nothing burns. Call our names, say them right. Bring the lamp, we need your light. The ones you beat beneath the sun now lead you step by step through none. What you called weak, what you denied, now walks while Egypt's frozen blind. Like eye of Ra, now who sees it all? Blind the eye of Ra. Let the Hebrews rise. Let the evil fall. What you worshipped as your light couldn't see you at all. What you worshipped as your light couldn't see you at all. Stone can't see, gold can't hear. call. 4 days it lived in our house. They watched, they said nothing. The Nile ran red, Hoppy bled. 7 days the river died. The source of life they crowned in gold, choked on his own pride. We saw the waters turn to death. We saw their power fail. The source they worshipped as their God could not itself prevail. One by one their idols fell, and none could rise again. If he had shattered all their gods, Dayenu, Dayenu. If he had crushed their throne of lies, Dayenu, Dayenu. Let every altar hit the ground, let every false god fall, Dayenu, Dayenu. He stands above them all. The sky went black, the eye of Ra was blinded in the flame. The God who ruled the light of men could not recall his name. The cattle dropped, Hathor struck, the strength laid in the dust. The gods of flesh and fertile land collapsed beneath his frost. The heavens split with fire and ice, the storm no man could tame. It shattered towers, raced to gods, and burned their sacred names. The pillars carved to pierce the sky, the courts of stone and gold, all cracked beneath the frozen fire. No priest could stop or hold. They called on names that could not hear, and none could answer them. If he had shattered all their gods, Dayenu, Dayenu. If he had crushed their throne of lies, Dayenu, Dayenu. Let every altar hit the ground, let every false god fall, Dayenu, Dayenu. He stands above them all, above them all. The frogs of Hikid filled the land, then rotted where they lay. The God of life they sang to once could not keep death away. The earth itself turned against them, just crawling in their skin. The gods they swore would guard their flesh now tore them from within. Bring it down! Bring it down! Now we take their God. We take their gold. We bind it in our home. We raise it to the flame. What they called God, we return as offering to Hashem's name. Not fear, not rage. We take what they held sacred and make it serve the one who broke their cage. If he had brought us just to this, Dayenu, Dayenu. To stand and break their gods like this, Dayenu, Dayenu. We take the thing they worship most and raise it to his flame, Dayenu, Dayenu. There is no other name. We do not fear. We take their God and bring it here. We do not bow, we do not fear. The hour's named, we took the blood in basin bowls, the hyssop in our hands, and marked the lintel, marked the posts, just as he had planned. Not hidden deep where none could see, but facing every street, a line drawn in
night between defeat and defeat. Belts tied, shoes on, staff in hand, no one leaves. About midnight, the line is drawn. About midnight, the old is gone. If he has brought us to this night, Dayenu, Dayenu. We ate the fire, the bitter leaves, the bread that would not rise. No time for rest, no time for peace, just truth before our eyes. My sons, he said, do not be afraid, you saw what he has done. The Nile, the hail, the shattered sky, no God, no king, no son. Stay inside, do not go out. The night is not ours to walk. About midnight, the weight will fall. About midnight, it claims them all. If he has brought us just this far, Dayenu, Dayenu. No blade raised, no storm breaks, just something moving. The mark on the door and the flickering light look darker now than before. No one spoke. A spade, then another, then all of each other. The firstborn are dead. Dayenu.
One cry, then 10, then 1,000.
From palace walls to prison stones, it tore across the land. No house untouched, no voice unmoved, no power left to stand. The night they swore they still controlled, split open at the core. The kings, the guards, the masters all could rule no more. No God speaks, no priest stands, no throne holds. A great cry in Egypt, let the whole land shake. Every chain they built on us is breaking as they break. If he had broken them tonight, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he did was strike them down, Dayenu, Dayenu. They mocked, they struck, they broke our backs, they built their world on pain. Now every lash they ever raised comes crashing down again. No taskmaster can raise his hand, his house is filled with cries. No overseer counts the bricks with death before his eyes. No whip falls, no voice commands, no slave remains. A great cry in Egypt, the system cannot stand. The empire built on stolen lives collapses where it stands. If he had ended it right now, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he gave was just this fall, Dayenu, Dayenu. Dayenu. Yeah.
left in his breath. Rise up, go, get out from here before we all meet death. The king who swore we'd never leave now cannot bear our sight. The man who chained 1,000,000 souls is broken in one night. No army forms, no chariot rides, no power left to turn the tide. They do not stop us, they cannot stand, they drive us out from their own land. A great crying AJP, and we are standing free. The ones who built their world in chains now walk out openly. If he had freed us just this night, if all he gave was just our chains broken, set us free.
They didn't just let us go, they paid us to live. Paid us to live. Doors flew open, hands were shaking. Take it, just go now. Gold cups, chains, and silver bracelets pressed into us as they bowed. Ledgers cleared in broken voices, debts of years paid in a breath. All the grain you gave us back, take it now, just leave. Just leave. Full weight, every brick accounted. We take everything they owe. Golden hand flocks loaded down, we strip the kingdom whole. If he had given us this wealth, if all he gave was what they owed, I got a gold cup, crown to match, silver stacked up to my chest. Loaded beast, still strapped for snapping, couldn't carry any less. Got so caught in counting riches, I forgot the food to bring. So I wrapped the dough across my back and left with everything. Too much gold, not enough time, leave it, never. We take every ounce they hid. The treasure buried in their walls now rides with every kid. If he had paid us just this night, if all he gave was justice due, the ground shook loud with moving feet, 1,000,000 steps in time. Carts and flocks and shouting voices, dust and wealth combined. Some stood still and would not move, I still on the land. Chains of gold can't hold a man as tight as Pharaoh's hand. We don't run, we don't hide, they push us out from every side. No guard stands, no whip cracks, the world just flipped, we're not going back. Through all the noise, the silence passed away, no gold could match. A sealed and ancient sarcophagus carried through the mass. The prince who saved this very land now leaves it in our line. Joseph walks with us again through dust and desert time. We take, the kingdom falls behind. The wealth of those who owned our lives now marches in our line. If he had brought us out this far, if all he gave was freedom now, golden hand, dough on our backs, the road ahead. No turning back.
did not stop. So neither did we.
We followed where the pillar burned, through desert dust and flame. The path turned sharp toward open sea, but still we never changed. The wind moved strange across the sand, the night held something new. But every step away from chains was proof that this was true. Behind us, dust and iron rise, the endless tide. If he had brought us to this place, if he had freed us from their chains, if all he gave was just this step, one night beyond their hand, we already stand. The sea stretched wide before our path, no road beneath our feet. But we had seen the Nile break, we had watched their gods retreat. No turning back to brick and lash, no bowing once again. The road ahead may have no map, but we are not those men. No chain remains, no voice commands. We walk as free men now. If he had brought us just this far, if all he broke was Pharaoh's power, if all he gave was open sky beyond the tyrant's land, we take our stand. The ground shook loud with iron wheels, the army closed behind. Moshe stood, no fear, no doubt, and cut across the line. Stand firm, do not turn back. The God who broke their throne will break this path.
The wind begins. The waters move.
If he had brought us to the sea, if all he gave was liberty, if all he gave was this one night where we are finally free, that is enough for me. See before us, army behind, but we don't stop, we don't turn, we move forward. See ahead, I run behind. No path forward, no ground to claim. The waves stood still, we did the same. The sound of chariots closed the gap. The line could not hold long.
and moved. Nachshon ben Aminadav, he stepped into the sea. Knees, chest, still he walked up to his breath. Moshe raised his hand, the wind tore through the night. Not gentle, not slow, a force that bent the world. Not wind alone, not chance, not tide. Her hand no man could stay. Reached into the depths themselves and forced the sea away. If he had opened just this path, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he gave was this one road, Dayenu, Dayenu. We step inside what cannot be, no turning back again. Into the sea.
We stepped in.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
The mud beneath us, no sinking sand. The sea stood back on either hand. The path was firm beneath our feet where waves had ruled before. Like earth itself was laid for us across the ocean floor. Roka Eretz Alamayim, he spread the ground beneath the sea.
If he had led us through on dry land, Dayenu, Dayenu. If he had made a road through the deep, Dayenu, Dayenu.
If all he gave was steps that hold where none should ever be,
Dayenu,
Dayenu, Dayenu. He made a path for me. The walls rose high with shifting light, a world we'd never known. Shapes of life moved far beyond in waters not our own. Children reached toward silver forms that flickered through the blue. But still we walked, we did not stop, we had a path to move.
Making mitzadei gaver. Every step prepared for me. If he had brought us through this way, Dayenu, Dayenu. If he had held the waters back, Dayenu, Dayenu.
If all he gave was forward ground when none was meant to be,
Dayenu,
Dayenu, Dayenu. That would be enough for me. Behind us, thunder filled the path, the wheels began to chase. Pharaoh himself drove into the deep with fury on his face. The last pride of a broken crown rushed headlong through the divide, but we kept moving forward still with nothing left to hide. Gold on our backs, dough in our hands,
children held close at our side. Shea Sali, Kotsarki, everything we need supplied. Water above us, path below, still we move, still we go.
If he had brought us through the sea, Dayenu, Dayenu. If he had carried all we are, Dayenu, Dayenu.
If all he gave was this one road from slavery to free,
Dayenu,
Dayenu, Dayenu. We'll walk in victory. The ground rose up, the waters stayed, and we stepped out unchained. They came in after us, all of them.
horses, chariots, steel.
The wall still held on either side, the road still hard and wide, and Pharaoh drove his iron force straight down the split sea spine. The last great pride of broken kings, the last thing left to throw. If gold was gone, if gods had failed, then let the chariots go.
He still believed the whip could win. He still believed force could begin again. When the waters returned, Dayenu, Dayenu.
When he broke their final strain,
Dayenu, Dayenu.
if all he did was drown their war beneath the crushing deep,
Dayenu, Dayenu.
their last pride could not keep. The wheels dragged hard, the axles failed, the chariots bucked and swayed. Their horses screamed against the floor the sea itself had made. The cloud and fire that held the night now turned against their line. What looked like open road for war was never theirs to find.
Too late they saw it, too late they knew.
Hashem fights for them and then it all broke through.
When the waters returned, Dayenu, Dayenu.
When he crushed the horse and wheel,
Dayenu, Dayenu.
if all he did was end their chase and sink their iron sleep,
Dayenu, Dayenu.
he cast them in the deep. The beast they saved because they feared more than Pharaoh's empty word. The stock they bought, the wealth they kept, the war line still preferred. All swept beneath the folding waves, all swallowed in one breath. The army armor, bridles, flags, dragged down to drown in death. No hail, no blood, no plague stretch along. Just one returning wall of judgment strong. The sea that fled before his hand now closed because he willed. And every boast of Egypt's war went silent, cold, and stilled.
When the waters returned, Dayenu, Dayenu.
When he ended all their might,
Dayenu, Dayenu.
if all he gave was this one crash to break what still remained,
Dayenu, Dayenu.
no empire leaves again. The path was there for just a breath, then sea and judge.
against our line. The horse, the wheel, the armored hand, now broken by design.
No shout remained, no force returned, no banner left to raise.
The empire that had filled the world lay still beneath the waves.
We turned and saw there was no one left to fear.
If he had brought them to this end, Dayenu, Dayenu. If he had shown us none remain, Dayenu, Dayenu.
If all he gave was this one sight that made the truth appear,
Dayenu, Dayenu.
we stand with nothing near.
No road behind, no chain remains, no master left to call. The land we knew is gone to us, we will not turn at all.
The sea now guards the life we left, no path to walk it through. The past is closed beneath the waves, the world begins anew.
No Egypt left, no going back, only the road ahead. If he had closed the world behind, Dayenu, Dayenu. If he had brought us safe this far, Dayenu, Dayenu.
If all he gave was this new ground where we can finally stand,
Dayenu, Dayenu.
a free and living band. Whoa. The waves return what war had lost, the steel, the wood, the rain. The tools of power once raised high, now scattered on the plain.
No longer held against our backs, no longer turned to fear. What once had chased us through the night now lay as remnants here.
We saw the hand that broke the sea, we saw what none denied.
The God who led us from the chains now leads us through the sky.
And Moshe stood before us, still no doubt left in his call.
The path ahead we do not know, but we will walk it
If he had done all this for us, Dayenu, Dayenu. If he had brought us here alive, Dayenu, Dayenu.
If all he gave was freedom's breath and broke the tyrant's hand,
Dayenu, Dayenu.
forever we will stay.
The drums began, soft at first.
Then rising, Miriam took the timbrel in her hand, and the women followed.
Sing, dance.
Do not wait for tomorrow.
No wall, no fields, no water lines, no plan. The sun burned hard against the sky, no shelter, shade or tree. A land where nothing living grows still carried all of me. The sand stretched out in every way, no path, no sign, no guide. And yet each breath returned again, though death walked at our side. No city, no grain, no system to remain. If he had kept us in this land, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he gave was breath and stand, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he did was hold our lives where none should ever be, Dayenu. fell cold without a sound. The heat was stripped away, a desert that could take your life by night as much as day. No walls to break the rising wind, no fire we could depend. Yet still we woke to morning light and walked the road again. No end in sight, no map to hold, still forward we would go. If he had brought us through this waste, if all he gave was one more day, if all he did was keep us here where none could long remain, we will not die in vain. Yeah. Move slow above our heads, a shadow in the flame. By day they held the burning back, by night they lit the same. We did not build, we did not sow, we did not store or plant, and still the ground beneath our feet did not consume a man. Not luck, not chance, not strength of our own hands. Something held us in this place no mind could understand. We were not surviving, we were sustained. If he had done just only this, if all he gave was life like this, if all he showed was that his hand can hold what cannot be, that would be enough for me. No walls, no fear, still we walk alive.
The ground was empty, then it wasn't. The dew rose slow with morning light, and something lay beneath. Not grown, not baked, not bought or stored, but placed before our feet. No hand had worked, no field to turn, no seed had touched the land. And still enough for every soul was waiting where we stand. What is it? Voices fill the air. Manhu, we did not understand. If he had fed us from the sky, dying, dying. If all he gave was daily bread, dying, dying. If all he did was meet our needs with nothing from our hand, dying, dying. We live because he can. Take what you need, no more, no less, no saving for the next. The ones who tried to hold it back found nothing left but waste. 6 days it fell with perfect measure, enough for every name. But on the 6th a double came, and none would fall the same. No store, no stock, no plan to hold tomorrow. If he had taught us how to trust, dying, dying. If all he gave was this each day, dying, dying. If all he showed was how we live without control or claim, dying, dying. We bless his holy name. It tasted like what each one wished, like honey, oil, and bread. met the heart itself, not just the hunger fed. The children laughed, the elders smiled, the fear began to fade. For every dawn confirmed again the promise he had made. We do not wake to earn our bread, we wake and it is there. Not by strength, not by trade, but because he cares. If he had fed us all our days, Diane, Diane. If all he gave was what we need, Diane, Diane. If all he showed was hand to mouth, still held by something higher, Diane, Diane. Our souls would not require more. We step outside, and there it is again.
Yeah. 6 days we gathered, and the voice came. Stop.
The morning came, we stepped outside, no manna on the ground. The place we walked each waking day was empty all around. No dew to lift, no bread to take, no work to fill our hand. The rhythm we had come to trust, now broken by command. No gathering, no going out. Then how do we survive if he had given us this day? Dying, dying. If all he gave was time to stop. Dying, dying. If all he gave was breath without the need to chase or plan. Dying, that would be enough for man. Ooh, that would be enough for man. The double portion held us through, no hunger pressed the air. The fear that drove our every step was suddenly not there. No task to chase, no field to claim, no master left to please. The weight that lived inside our bones was lifted into ease. No gathering, no striving, and still we remain. If he had freed us just to rest, Diane, Diane. If all he gave was peace like this, Diane, Diane. If all he gave was one full day when nothing must be done, Diane, we live as truly one. Yeah. We are not driven by the whip, we are not bound by need. We do not wait to chase the day or race another's greed. The world can wait, the ground can rest, the sky will still remain. For once we stand outside the pool of labor, loss, and gain.
Yeah, bones drop on. A slave counts hours. A slave cannot stop. Yeah, but a people set free can trust what does not drop. Yeah.
If he had given us this gift, Diane, Diane. If all he gave was sacred time, Diane, Diane. If all he gave was one true sign that we are not controlled, Diane, we are no longer on. No work, no fear, no change, just rest. No work, no fear, no change. No work, no fear, no change. And we are still here.
The mountain did not wait for us. It was already alive. The ground beneath
began to shake, the sky burned dark and white. A sound rolled down the desert plain, no man could step aside. The peak was wrapped in smoke and flame, the air too thick to breathe. A place no foot was meant to climb, and none could truly leave. Do not come too close, do not cross the line. And still we move. If he had brought us to this place, if all he did was draw us near, if all he gave was this one moment, standing face to flame, we would not be the same. Lightning cracked without a storm, the thunder held a voice. The mountain breathed beneath our feet as if it had a choice. The shofar sound began to rise, no hand could make that call. It pulled the heart out from the chest and shook the soul of all. We wanted near, we feared the same, no man could stand unchanged. Just this close, if all he gave was this great all, if all he showed was what he is beyond all form or name, we would not be the same. No longer wandering through the sand, no longer lost or free. We stood before a presence now that claimed what we would be. Not by force, not by chain, but something far more deep. A call that reached inside the soul, no man could turn or keep. Stand in the space where heaven meets the ground beneath your shaking feet. If he had brought us to his mount, if all he gave was this one call, if all he gave was just to stand where earth and heaven meet, that would be complete. And burn, the sound grew louder, and we knew something was about to begin. No build, no warning. Impact line, the voice came, and the world could not hold it. Fire spoke without a flame, sound tore through the air. Not heard the way a man would hear, but something deeper there. The mountain shook beneath the words, the sky split open wide. Each sound a force that filled the soul with nowhere left to hide. We did not stand, we were undone. If he had given us his voice, if all he gave was just one word,
Each word struck deeper than the last, no space for thought or breath. The sound itself was life and truth that felt as close as death. We heard and could not bear to hear again. The body could not stay. The soul reached out beyond the frame, then somehow found its way. Moshe, stand between us now. We cannot take this more. If he had given us this truth, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he gave was just this fire, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he gave was this one sound that no man can contain, Dayenu, we would not be the same. Not by sword, not by chain, not by hunger, loss or gain. We were shaped by what we heard and what we could not hold. A people formed in fire and sound, a truth that can't be sold. The voice did not just speak, it claimed not land, not body. If he had given us his law, Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. If all he gave was who we are, Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. If all he gave was this one truth that we are his alone, Dayenu, we are no longer our own. The mountains still burn, but we step back because now we understood. We had been changed. After all the dust, we saw it. The desert broke beneath our feet. The color changed ahead. Where sand had ruled for all our days, now life and water spread. Green against the open sky, a land that breathed and grew. Not borrowed ground, not passing through, something finally true. This is the place, the one he said, the promise now in view.
If he had brought us to this land, Dayenu. If all he gave was ground to stand, Dayenu.
If all he gave was this one place to live and not to flee, Dayenu, Dayenu, that would be enough for me. No longer walking without rest, no longer moving on. No pillar leading through the night, no road to chase at dawn. We plant, we build, we raise a life. We stand where roots can grow. A people no longer carried, but a people who now know. No wandering, no running, we remain. If he had ended all our roads, Dayenu, and peace where we can finally be. Dayenu, Dayenu, we stand in dignity. And through the years when we were torn and scattered from this place, the memory of this living land did not erase. We spoke its name in distant lands. We faced another dawn, and slowly through the weight of time we came back home again. The promise held, the ground remained, waiting for our return. If he had kept this land for us, Dayenu. If all he gave was hope that stayed, Dayenu. If all he gave was this return after all we've seen, Dayenu, Dayenu. We rebuild what has been. Not just a land, not just a claim, a place that holds his living name. The ground beneath our Father's call now holds us, one and all. If he had brought us back to this, Dayenu. If all he gave was life restored, Dayenu. If all he gave was this one truth, that we are not alone, Dayenu, Dayenu. We finally come home. The land was always there, waiting, and now so are we. Not just a land, a place within it, high on the hills where the world draws near, a city set apart, not built by power, not claimed by force, but chosen from the start. The stones remember every step, the prayers that filled the air, a place where every road of time was always leading there. Not just walls, not just ground, something deeper here is found. If he had brought us to this place, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he gave was sacred ground, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he gave was just this hill where heaven touches stone, Dayenu, Dayenu. We would not stand alone. Stone on stone, the house was raised on the calm for his name, not to hold him, not contain, but to draw us to the flame. The fire fell, the present, a stillness filled the space, a people standing not alone, but face to hidden face. Not distant, not apart, he placed his name within our heart. If he had built this house for us, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he gave was this one place, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he gave was height. We carried still within our souls the memory of that light. Through every land, through every age, through exile, loss and pain, we turned our hearts toward this one place and spoke its name again. Jerusalem, we call your name.
Across the years the same.
If he had left us just this hope, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he gave was memory,
Dayenu,
Dayenu. If all he gave was this one place we never could replace, Dayenu, Dayenu. We'd still seek your face. Return us, rebuild it. Let the stones rise again. Let the sound of song and offering fill these halls again. Not just remembered, not just known, but standing once again as home. If he rebuilds this house again, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he brings us back once more, Dayenu, Dayenu. If all he does is place his name where we can stand as one, Dayenu, Dayenu. The journey will be done
from Egypt
to this place